February 11th, 2017, Saturday of the 5th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Genesis. The Lord God called to Adam and asked him, "Where are you?" He answered, "I heard you in the garden, but I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid myself." Then he asked, "Who told you that you are naked? You have eaten then from the tree of which I had forbidden you to eat." The man replied, "The woman whom you put here with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and so I ate it." The Lord God then asked the woman, "Why did you do such a thing?" The woman answered, "The serpent tricked me into it, so I ate it." Then the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you shall be banned from all the animals and from all the wild creatures. On your belly shall you crawl, and dirt shall you eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will strike at your head, while you strike at his heel." To the woman he said, "I will intensify the pangs of your childbearing. In pain shall you bring forth children. Yet your urge shall be for your husband, and he shall be your master." To the man he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree of which I had forbidden you to eat, cursed be the ground because of you. In toil shall you eat its yield all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to you, as you eat of the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face shall you get bread to eat, until you return to the ground from which you were taken. For you are dirt, and to dirt you shall return." The man called his wife Eve, because she became the mother of all the living. For the man and his wife the Lord God made leather garments, with which he clothed them. Then the Lord God said, "See, the man has become like one of us, knowing what is good and what is evil. Therefore, he must not be allowed to put out his hand, to take fruit from the tree of life also, and thus eat of it and live forever." The Lord God therefore banished him from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he had been taken. When he expelled the man, he settled him east of the Garden of Eden, and he stationed the cherubim and the fiery revolving sword to guard the way to the tree of life. The word of the Lord.
Responsorial Psalm. The response is, "In every age, O Lord, you have been our refuge. Before the mountains were begotten, and the earth and the world were brought forth, from everlasting to everlasting you are God. In every age, O Lord, you have been our refuge. You turn man back to dust, saying, 'Return, O children of men.' For 1,000 years in your sight are as yesterday, now that it is past, or as a watch of the night. In every age, O Lord, you have been our refuge. You make an end of them in their sleep. The next morning they are like the changing grass, which at dawn springs up anew, but by evening wilts and fades. In every age, O Lord, you have been our refuge. Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain wisdom of heart. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. In every age, O Lord, you have been our refuge."
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. In those days, when there again was a great crowd without anything to eat, Jesus summoned the disciples and said, "My heart is moved with pity for the crowd, because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them away hungry to their homes, they will collapse on the way, and some of them have come a great distance." His disciples answered him, "Where can anyone get enough bread to satisfy them here in this deserted place?" Still he asked them, "How many loaves do you have?" They replied, 7. He ordered the crowd to sit down on the ground. Then taking the 7 loaves, he gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to distribute, and they distributed them to the crowd. They also had a few fish. He said the blessing over them, and ordered them distributed also. They ate and were satisfied. They picked up the fragments left over, 7 baskets. There were about 4,000 people. He dismissed the crowd and got into the boat with his disciples and came to the region of Dalmanutha. The Gospel of the Lord.
February 11th, Saturday of the 5th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from Genesis 3:9-24. Adam and Eve have just sinned and they've hidden from God. So God calls out, "Where are you?" And Adam's response, "We heard you in the garden, but we were afraid because we're naked." And God knows that they have sinned. So God punishes the serpent, the woman, and Adam. Now the punishments mentioned are a bit of etiologies. An etiology is a fancy story told to explain a mystery which goes beyond our understanding. A good example of an etiology, if my little grandniece would ask me what the great noise was when it thundered, I wouldn't say that it's electrostatic charges being released into the atmosphere, causing air molecules to expand and contract at rapid rate, which creates massive sound waves. I would most probably say something like it's the angels bowling in heaven, something that the child could understand. Well, here there are actually 2 levels of punishment. The first level is that sin causes alienation. Adam and Eve hide from God. There's an alienation between us and God. When God asks Adam why he did it, he blames Eve, an alienation between ourselves and each other. And then Eve blames the snake, an alienation from creation. But then each individual creature is also punished. The serpent loses its legs and it has to crawl on its belly, eating dust. The idea that this was such an odd creature that it wouldn't have legs, the fact that it didn't have legs must be a punishment for something. Furthermore, there would be enmity between the woman and her offspring and its offspring. Now this could be understood at several different levels. When this passage was written around 950 BC, it probably refers to the fact that there was enmity between David and his kingdom and the Moabites, who worshipped their god under the form of a serpent. In the days of David, he conquered Moab, but Moab rebelled under David's son Solomon and regained its independence. This idea of difficulties. It could be understood at a natural level that humans hate snakes and snakes seem to hate people. It could be understood at a messianic level, that the Messiah would conquer the power of the serpent, but the serpent would attack his heel, that Jesus was crucified. It seemed as if the serpent won, but love conquered evil. When this passage was translated into Greek, instead of saying that the offspring was male, it puts it into the feminine, and it was applied to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And in fact, statues of the Immaculate Conception show her crushing the head of the serpent. Well, what is the punishment for the woman? There are 2 punishments. She would suffer childbirth pains. And remember, this is not to be understood in a scientific way. This is simply an etiological explanation. Why is it that something that should bring so much joy also includes so much sorrow? And she would long for her husband, but he'll lord it over her. The idea that men can be arrogant towards women is seen as a punishment, something that God did not intend, but entered society because of sin. And the man would work hard, but not receive a proper recompense. Work is not the punishment. Even before the sin, man worked in the garden. His punishment is that he would not receive a proper recompense. The woman is called Eve, which is a name associated with the word living, because she is the mother of all living. And God prepares a wardrobe for Adam and Eve. He protects them, even though he had told them that if they ate of the tree of good and evil, they would die immediately. He protects them, but he does exile them from the Garden of Paradise, from that tree of life. That now we'll live a mortal existence. We're certainly going to die. And in fact, he protects the entrance to that garden with cherubim. Now, cherubim are not little bare-bottom babies that you see in Baroque art. Rather, they're horrific creatures that you would see at the door of an Assyrian temple, part dragon, part lion. They would terrify people who approached that garden. The Gospel is from Mark 8, 1-10. There are people who are following Jesus and they're quite far from their homes. They have nothing to eat. So what does Jesus do? He takes 7 loaves, blesses them, and distributes them to the crowd along with a few fish. They have more than enough food left over, 7 baskets left over. Now this is one of 2 multiplication of loaves and fish in Mark and Matthew. One multiplication is for the Jewish people. There are over 5,000 people there, and there are 12 baskets left over, 12 for the 12 tribes of Israel. This multiplication is for the Gentiles, because he's in Gentile territory, and there are 7 baskets left over, 7 being the perfect number, enough for every person upon the earth. That Jesus satisfies our deepest hunger, which realistically is the hunger of our hearts, our brokenness, our need to know that we're loved, that we're not alone in this journey, but rather we're accompanied by someone who loves us more than we love ourselves. And may God bless us.